Several potential conflicts of interest due to his many businesses and his business ties around the globe. How could his new title, president-elect and then president, affect all of that? Suzanne Craig is a government and politics reporter at the New York Times. Has a fascinating new story out about exactly this. She joins me now. We're going to play with the magic wall. So let's talk about, there you have Trump and his family and all of the businesses. So let's begin with the glaring one, the brand new D.C. hotel that they opened up that he went and cut the ribbon at just a few weeks before the election. They've leased it from the government. They pay $250,000 in rent a month, a lot of money, and he rents it from the General Services Administration. The issue here is, guess who's in charge of appointing the head of the General Services Administration? Him.
The president is. It's just an incredible situation where you've got a property, a Trump property, where they're going to be having to negotiate with an agency where the president appoints the head of the agency. And the GSA, the agency involved, has already said that they're looking at this and that they're going to be putting things in place and just sort of putting that on their radar in order to avoid and try and avoid any potential conflicts. But it's already right there, just blocks away from the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue, this new hotel.
All right, he's been in a number of legal discussions with lawsuits around unionization, right? And the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, which represents these unions, basically, they've been in a legal battle now for a long time, especially in Las Vegas, the culinary union there. Trump lost that battle. They're going back and forth with them. It's not the only one. There are other labor union disputes. When you look at what could happen there in terms of, who oversees and staffs and heads the NLRB, again, his business interests are directly tied to them.
Yeah, and this is a hotel in Las Vegas that he owns with another individual. The National Labor Board, it's appointed by the president and involvement in their ruling. They have rulings potentially both for and against various of his workers. In this case, they ruled against him just days before the election.
So what will happen as president? I mean, it's not all sorted out yet.
It's not all sorted out, which is going to be interesting, and I'm sure all these agencies and government entities are looking at it and trying to put things in place, but it's going to be messy.
Is it fair to say these agencies have never had to deal with something like this before in a president?
Pretty safe to say.
Pretty safe to say. All right, let's move on. We've heard this a lot. The family and the blind trust. Who will run the businesses? Rudy Giuliani on State of the Union with Jake Tapper this weekend said basically you've got to trust the president. You've got to have trust in him and that he will do right by this, because he said he can't put his kids out of work. Now, here's the thing. Federal law actually exempts the president and the vice president, right, Suzanne, from not profiting from their own businesses. They can, they just don't have to disclose it. But there's something else called the emoluments clause. What is that? Why does it matter?
Well, it's interesting, and you mentioned something at the outset, which was the word blind trust. There right now, the way it's being discussed, there will be no blind trust here. The children will be in charge of it, and that's not blind. In order for the trust to be blind, you have to not know what's in it. It's like somebody once said to me.
They're all serving on his transition team.
Exactly,
Also,
and it's like somebody said to me, it's like putting a gold watch in a box and then pretending you don't know the gold watch is there. You know it's there. But there are still things, even though there won't be a blind trust, he's not subject to that, while other lawmakers and government employees potentially are, if they have these massive holdings. But there are other federal laws that potentially could come into play, including bribery law, and then the one that you mentioned, which is the receiving of payments not only from foreign governments, but from individuals with ties to foreign government.
For example, China.
For example, China. One immediate point of interest that we were looking at was the Bank of China as a tenant in the Trump Tower, and also partnerships that Donald Trump has with real estate ventures.
Right.
One of them has a massive loan in from the Bank of China.
And rent ain't cheap in any Trump Tower, I can tell you that. Hey, before I let you go, there are these three big buildings on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, right by the Hudson River, and I've seen them for years driving up the highway. They say Trump. They're all Trump buildings.
Yeah.
Now the name is no longer?
No longer. That's an interesting situation where it's buildings that are managed by Donald Trump. He doesn't own them, and the tenants have decided they want the names off. They want the Trump name off the building.
And so that's happening.
Yeah.
All right. It's a